All right, let's talk with Elle in Arizona,
All
who
right.
was part of the vampiric sex cult earlier.
That's oof.
Yeah. Elle,
Hi,
I
Elle.
know Eric had so many questions for you last time, and you're calling back to continue that conversation.
Yes, I am. I just need to gather my thoughts for a second because Isaiah's call, I feel like you're getting two callers from flip sides of the same coin, and I just, my heart goes out to him.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've been there, and I'm so sorry.
Well, hey,
It gets
this is why
better,
we
I
have
promise.
this is why we have the show, so that people can be like, "Hey, I had this experience and it sucks," and other people can empathize and not feel as alone. Elle, tell us a little bit more about. I know that Eric, you had lots of questions last week.
I do. I know, Elle, you wanted to reach out during the week. I apologize. I was crazy busy during the week, and I really appreciate you calling back in.
Oh, no worries.
Go ahead.
Everyone is busy. I'm trying to write my thesis too, so it's happens.
Well, I appreciate it. So, really, the reason I wanted you to call back and the reason I want you to give a little bit more information is, and just for people who have not been following the saga of this, I did a guest appearance on a show called Miracles and Atheist where I talked to a gentleman named Bill Schneblin. Bill was a contributor to the Satanic Panic in the 80s. He consulted with Jack Chick on stuff with for about the evils of D&D. He also says he was an ex-Satanist, ex-cultist, ex-yada yada yada yada, ex-vampire, and we thought that was pretty nuts. But you called in and said that you were actually in a vampiric cult, and you're out. And the reason I have all these questions is because I feel like if we leave it at that, someone might still walk away thinking that vampires exist. So someone might walk away thinking that you gained super strength for a while, or that you lost the ability to see yourself in the mirror, or that you developed an aversion to garlic, or that that those groups that there are people who can get all of their nutrients from blood, or things like that, right? And because of that, I know it's silly, but I want to be super clear on every one of those points, because I don't want to leave anyone to go, oh, well, maybe, and that's why I really wanted you to call back in. So would you mind if I asked you a couple really silly questions?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to step on you, but
No,
I
go
just want to
ahead.
say that's actually kind of why I wanted to call in and start trying to debunk that guy in the first place, because a lot of these cults, the people in them, genuinely believe these things, but they have these sort of weasel ways of explaining why, the super strength is only in the metaphysical. And so it seems like you and I are kind of on the sort of the same page of like going not all the way down that rabbit hole, because it's very, like, the beliefs of this cult were like crazy complicated when you got down to the nitty gritty. But that chain of like, okay, here's the claim, this is why it was wrong, and these are sort of the weaselly ways the cult like kind of tried to convince us it was true, or whatever.
Yeah, I'm glad we're on the same page. So let's dive in, shall we? Okay, cool. So, during the time that you were supposedly became a vampire, I would understand that if somebody was very, very, into it and they thought, I'm becoming something new, that that they could try and find signs of things. But like Bill said, that he grew really long canines, like Dracula in like the Karloff Dracula. Is it Karloff?
No.
No.
Well, Karloff is
No, not
Wolfman.
Karloff. Who is Dracula?
Bela Lugosi.
Lugosi. Thank you. I'm
The
sorry.
communist icon, the activist.
You're right. Like
Yes.
Bela Lugosi with the bull. Did you grow fangs? Did you know anybody or see anybody who grew fangs over that, other than wearing prosthetics?
Okay, so I'm going to clarify something real quick. I was not one of the vampires in this vampiric sex cult. My role was someone that they fed off of. I was the spiritual psychic healer.
Thrall.
Because
Got
they
it.
believed that. So I would get fed off of, but I was never, quote unquote, burned.
Oh,
But they fully believed that they were vampires. My role was always as like the healer, the diplomat, the person who would smooth over, issues within the cult. And
Oh my
so
gosh.
they
okay.
So they were emotional
So-
vampires too, is what you're saying.
Oh, that's awful.
yes, actually.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. So, did you witness anyone growing supernatural vampire teeth?
Oh, this is going to sound really dumb, but no one actually grew super vampire teeth.
I'm
Several
glad.
of the members. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say I'm glad it's really dumb. That's the point. We're good, but you wanted to offer more clarification.
Yeah, so some of the members would like prove they had powers by saying, "Oh yeah, look at my canines. They're super sharp and pointy." Well, everyone's canines are super sharp and pointy. And I noticed it was the members who had slightly more prominent canines that tended to lean into the vampirism. A lot of them were like, "Oh, I'm so pale and I bruise easily because I'm,
Irish?
a vampire." No, literally, no, they were Irish.
Oh,
They
see?
were 100 SPF in the summer because he was the whitest white person I ever knew in my entire life.
I
We
know
went on
that
vacation.
I know that we didn't
Sorry.
actually cover that, but I am entirely unsurprised. So
Yeah.
hold on. Just to clarify, and also I do know, and I've met people who've had their canines sharpened,
Right.
and who have sharpened their own canines because they were idiots. So I get that, which is why I brought up the super long canines. Okay, cool. So let's mark that box as a no. How about super strength, superpowers? You were saying people were saying it only
Absolutely.
manifested a certain way. Tell us about that
Yeah.
experience.
Okay, so to understand that, you have to understand that, and I don't think this is explicitly just my cult, because I know that a lot of other religions even kind of have this tenet where things, you can't see your blessings because they're only in the spiritual realm.
Oh, yeah, that's
So,
Christianity
in
too.
our cult- yeah, no. So what would happen is we believed that the human world was originally joined with the spiritual world, and this is going to sound a lot like Scientology or Mormonism when it gets further into it. But basically, the human world was separated from the spiritual world, and humans and everyone on this planet it's kind of like a spiritual and physical prison. We believed we were all from another dimension, like a spiritual dimension. And we were kicked out of that spiritual dimension to Earth and put in bodies by evil powers that were going to destroy and take over both worlds. And they kicked us into these human bodies to prevent us from stopping the end of the world.
Damn. I mean,
basically-
I'd read this young adult fantasy.
Yeah, honestly, I'm getting kind of Animorphs vibes. So
Y'all are roasting me.
no, not you.
Not you.
Not you.
Definitely not you.
You're talking to people who are former believers in a book where people, either metaphysically drank the blood and ate the flesh of Jesus Christ and still continue to do so, right? We talk a lot about wild beliefs, not just in the Bible, but extra biblical stuff, like the gifts of the Holy Spirit and how those things, manifest and how people would talk about it, right? Speaking in tongues, all of that, that's all wild too. It's not less wild. It's just for some reason more socially acceptable in places.
Right. I absolutely want to make sure that you understand, Elle. We are not laughing at you, and we don't want to minimize at all the stuff that happened to you. What we are trying to do is engage with this in a way that feels safe for viewers and for you. But if this is not helping, let us know.
Yeah, it is funny, and I personally I feel like it helps.
Wait, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Can I stop you guys from apologizing, because I actually handle a lot of like the hard stuff I've been through through dark humor. So
Okay.
I actually really appreciated your comments. I was just kind of joking and riffing a little bit.
Cool.
Just making sure.
Yeah. Humor can kind of
So no apologies
defang
needed.
the issue.
God
What?
damn it. God damn it.
Defanging the seriousness? No? Fine. Okay.
Oh my God.
So, okay. So you were giving, thank you, Elle. You were giving a lead up, but I kind of just want to make sure that we're super clear on this. Did you see anybody develop superhuman strength or other superhuman abilities?
All of the superhuman abilities were manifested in this spiritual dimension that was also connected to the multiverse, and the spiritual dimension could...
Okay.
The spiritual dimension was the original real dimension, and therefore it was connected with the multiverses. But since the human dimension was like this spin-off prison that overlapped with the spiritual dimension, regular humans were bad, and that's why climate change exists, and that's why bad people exist, because this is a prison, basically.
Okay.
Special beings that were going to save the world.
They're like dream warriors in was it Freddy Krueger 3 or something like that. Okay, got it. So they had special abilities, just not in the real world.
Exactly.
Got it.
Cool. Were people able to sustain themselves on drinking blood alone?
Absolutely not. The first leader, who is the one who physically drank my blood, would claim that she had to eat, but real food made her sick, and so she had to drink my blood. But the others only metaphorically drank my blood, and basically they would bite my wrist or my arm or my neck, and they really clamp down. It hurt, and it would leave bruises sometimes. And the first leader did this too sometimes, and they would say they were feeding off the spiritual essence of my blood through my skin. And the bruising was evidence that they had been sucking my blood
spiritually,
metaphorically. Yeah, spiritually.
Oh my God.
Exactly.
Not metaphorically. Metaphorically, they actually know that they. But that is nuts. And okay, so V, do you have any other questions? Because I'm trying to think of things that I want to make sure we swat down for people who think that.
Did anybody turn into a bat?
Oh my God, no.
Okay, just checking.
Live chat. Any other questions for the caller before we go? Because I'm just. Let's see. How about rivalries with werewolves?
That was one of the dumbest things. Is
wait, did they?
One of the leaders claimed that she was queen of a bunch of these alternate dimensions. Actually, every ruler or leader, whenever they came into power, would be like, "Oh, the other one was a false leader. I'm gonna."
Of course.
They were actually suppressing the true leader, which is me, and I am the queen of these alternate dimensions where, vampires and werewolves are friends.
Oh, they're friends now. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Elle. Holy crap.
Yeah, so there was a good question here by Randy. Randy Powers in the chat asked, can the leaders get put into prison for this? Are there legal consequences? Like if somebody finds themselves in this situation and they're watching this video, what is available to them? What should they do?
I don't really have a good answer for that. One of the reasons I didn't talk about this until I was an adult is because I did not have a safe family situation, and I was actually in a Catholic school at the time, so I didn't have a safe place to go to adults for help when I was a kid. And then when I was an adult and I was still in this cult, I was at one point engaged to one of the people who thought they were a vampire, not the leader who abused me, but a different one. And we actually kind of left the cult together. But I don't know that there's any legal recourse that I could have taken, because I think one of the most difficult things for me was that I had to sort of figure out why all of this had happened on my own, because if I went to the police and said, like, hey, there's like this cult with teenagers, I didn't think they were going to do anything. I don't know. I don't really have any good advice aside from, if you're in something like this, try to record what you can, especially if they're abusing you.
Yeah.
Try to keep documentation of everything that happens. And then if there's something, but that's the best I can suggest, because at the end of the day, I think a lot of authorities are going to be like, oh my God, this is a really weird little coven that was max, 15 or 20 people, and everyone's just insane and it doesn't matter.
So I got to push back. I think that if you're being abused physically, in particular, it's more difficult to push charges when it comes to emotional abuse. But if you're being physically abused, and this isn't directed at you, Elle, as much as people who are watching, if you find yourself being physically abused, go to the police. Call the police. I would love to kind of poll the chat to help maybe pull together a couple of resources that we can put on the description for this video for people. If you're watching this and you are in a bad place, Elle, thank you for being here on the line. Just hold on a second. If anybody is watching this and is in a bad place, hopefully we'll have those links under the description for this clip and this video as soon as we can. It's going to be okay. You can get out. Elle, the fact that you did get out is really, really hopeful. And I'm really, really glad that you got to share that, because I can only imagine that there are people who feel pretty hopeless.
And I'm really sorry if I sounded like you shouldn't go for help. If you're being abused, you should absolutely go for help. Try and, collect evidence. It just wasn't a safe option for me at the time.
Right.
That's all I wanted to get across, because I'm sure there's people asking, like, why didn't you go to the police, etc. And it just wasn't safe for me at the time.
Absolutely.
To do any of those things.
And that's the other thing we want to make sure that we're stressing here. If you are somebody who escaped something like this, or for whatever reason have decided not to pursue recourse legally or in any other way, that's not something that we as people outside of that situation can judge you for, right? That is not something, we're not going to come at you and say, hey, Elle, you were put in this situation against your will and you were abused by these people, but now it's on you to do something about it. That's not fair either. So if you were to go to the police at some point, if somebody else was to go to the police for their thing, we would support that. We also support you taking priority and saying, that's not safe for me, either emotionally or physically, so I'm just going to protect myself. That's a good call for you if that's what you feel you need to do.
Yeah, and then the other thing I wanted to touch on regarding this, that I wrote this down as a point, but a lot of these things, including the one I was in, will vilify any authority besides themselves. including the police when they can actually help. So there was one point I was crying in the middle of the street on the phone with one of the leaders who was instructing me to perform, some weird ritual thing in public. And the police showed up because some, very nice woman had seen me crying. And, they asked if I needed help, if I needed a ride home. And the cult leader was like, those police are being spiritually controlled. If you go with them, you're going to die. Because that's the other thing is they held spiritual death over us. Like a lot of the members didn't have that good family, or they had lost family members in like the real world. And so part of the draw of the cult was that, they're all living and fine and you can talk to them in the spiritual world.
Well, that sounds familiar.
You can have these astral families and you don't have to wait to die. You can just talk to them now. They're there. If you have powers, you can just talk to them now and interact with them. And, so we would have, like, people would create entire families or believe their family members were still speaking to them. And if you gave up the belief, the onus was you will lose your powers, you will lose all of the people you love here and there, and you will physically die.
Damn.
That is heartbreaking.
That's horrible, Elle. That is horrible. I think we're gonna pause this for now, just because I don't want to push you, and this is certainly something that is very heavy. But thank you for calling and humoring us as we ask you some questions that seem silly, but really need to be talked about, because you're exactly right. They are able to spin these things into descriptions and explanations that don't sound as ridiculous, and it pulls people in. It really does. So thank you for being forthcoming and for sharing your story with us.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate you calling this. I am getting a little tired.
Yeah.
Not of you guys, you're wonderful, but it is kind of...
Oh, absolutely.
It's emotionally exhausting.
To have to go through it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go take care of yourself, take a bath, make some tea, read a book, pet a cat. But we're happy you're here and you're out.
Take care, Elle.
Bye.
The fact that so much of that we can look at and be like, well, that's just on its face ridiculous. Now I'm going to go to church and pray so that I can get into heaven, into the spiritual other realm where I can see my family again. And I don't really want to, but I'm afraid that if I lose my faith and walk away, I lose that spiritual family too. It's the same manipulation tactics. It's just been normalized to the extent that nobody pays attention. Yeah. Ugh, my gosh. Yeah, lots of feelings there. Lots of feelings for sure.
Definitely.
Give Elle some love in the chat, and be patient with us as we work through calls like this with our limited and purely layperson understanding of psychology and
we're
cult
just
behavior
assholes on
and
the
sociology. Yeah, we are not therapists, we are not medical professionals, but we always endorse going to therapy if you can afford it, if you can find it, and getting the help that you need.
Absolutely. Absolutely.